I'm Annie Peterson, Preservation and Digitization Librarian with LYRASIS, and I'm going to be talking today about salvaging water-damaged photographs. And we'll look at a few different formats of photographic prints and negatives and CDs if you have photos stored on CDs. So the first thing to think about if you are salvaging from a flood or leak or other water disaster is whether it's a scale that you can handle in-house or whether it's something that you need to call for some assistance on. So we'll assume today's scenario is something we can handle in-house. There's maybe 50 photographs that have been damaged and we want to just be able to air dry them. So you always want to protect yourself when you're working with collections that have been damaged from floodwaters or other possibly contaminated water. So we're going to put on some nitrile gloves. And these are also helpful for protecting the photographs. When photographs get wet, the top layer, the emulsion layer, it's really soft. And if you put your fingers directly on them, then you would leave fingerprints. So we're protecting ourselves and the collections wearing nitrile gloves. So imagine these photographs are wet. We would next want to rinse them off a little bit if they were contaminated in any way. So we could have a bin or a small tray of distilled water that would rinse away anything that was on the photographs. So we could rinse it quickly, just dip it in some water. If it wasn't completely wet or completely submerged, you wouldn't want to get it wetter. But if there's anything on it, just rinse it off in distilled water. And then you could set up a drying area that is covered in newsprint or other absorbent material that will wick away moisture from the photographs. And it's good to have some air circulation too. So as photos or papers or books or anything becomes wet, then it can become moldy. So keeping that air circulating helps protect collections from becoming moldy. So you can start laying out photographs face up on your newsprint or other absorbent material. And spacing them out, you never want to stack photographs on top of each other to dry because first that air isn't going to circulate and they won't dry as quickly. And also they might stick together. If you stack photographs this way on top of each other, they will definitely stick together and can be very difficult to tear apart. So setting them up with some nice even spacing, some air circulating in the room, and absorbent materials underneath them. It takes up a lot of space pretty quickly, so that's something to think about before a disaster is where you can find some tables or other space to be able to dry these photographs. Photographic prints can be treated pretty similarly across different formats. So these are color photographs, but black and white photographs will be treated similarly. Photographic negatives are a little bit different in that you have the ability to be able to hang them up to dry. So for photographic negatives, you always want to handle with gloves, again, to protect that emulsion layer of the film. It's very soft when it's wet. And these have already been removed from their negative holder, but if they hadn't, you can remove them very carefully from the negative holder so that they can dry on their own. As you're doing all of this drying, always remember to keep the metadata or other description in association with the original images. You don't want to lose all that hard work of processing that you've put into these collections. So to dry photographic negatives, if they're in these strips like this and they had been in a negative holder previously, you can set up a clothesline and then have a little paper clip and hook it through one of the sprocket holes and then set that to dry on the clothesline. Again, this is a case where you want to make sure that you've got them separated as they were processed previously. And just let them dry. You can also hang a clothespin at the other end to stop it from curling up. They should also, just like the photographic prints, be monitored so that you don't see any mold growth or you notice any problems with the drying pretty quickly. The last format to look at are CDs. These are CDs that might have photographs stored on them, and it would be better if they were not stored on CDs because they're not a very long-lasting media, but sometimes you have to salvage CDs. So these CDs have been already taken out of their cases. If they weren't, you would want to remove them from their case and then give them a quick rinse in distilled water if there were any debris or contaminants on them, and then wipe them with a lint-free cloth from the inside out. So you don't want to wipe CDs in a circular way, you want to wipe them from the inside out very gently, and then just lay them upright with the label side down on some absorbent materials to air dry. CDs are a format that cannot be frozen. Freezing is one way that you can stabilize collections just to make sure that they don't grow mold or that the water damage gets worse. So CDs are a format that has to be air dried. So that's the best practice for CDs that are damaged in your collections. So that's some basics of how you salvage photographic collections and air dry them. And thank you.